At one point in time, zombies were the one thing you couldn't escape. They were everywhere, from prank videos to games to movies and shows. And then there's comics, one of which being The Walking Dead, written by Robert Kirkman, who would later go on to write Invincible. The Walking Dead comic was released in 2003, and over the course of its run, it would have well over 100 issues that would lead to one of the biggest shows of all time, with one of the biggest fall-offs of all time, AMC's The Walking Dead. Created by both Robert Kirkman and Frank Darabont, director and writer of The Mist, The Green Mile, and The Shawshank Redemption, his familiarity with such well-renowned book-to-movie adaptations made him the perfect person to make the show. And with a budget of approximately $3.4 million per episode, it was significantly smaller than you'd think it'd be. And that's the thing, this first season holds up really well for the most part. Despite all the later problems, these two really created something special that was going in a unique direction. And that's not to say this first season is amazing, because like everything, it has its good and bad. So let's not waste any more time and get into it. Episode 1, Days Gone By, is possibly one of the best pilot episodes I've ever seen. With its slow pace building up to all the eventual carnage and calamity Rick will come to see, really shows you how intelligently restrained these writers were. The episode starts with Rick walking with some gas canisters to a gas station, with his cop car being left, which is where it will remain for the rest of time. Seriously, he never goes back for it. Throughout a mostly silent scene, he finds a horrifically mangled girl in PJs, and despite taking a little while, ends up going through with it and shooting the girl. It's also nice to set up how helpful Rick is, which makes sense since he's barely been introduced to the apocalypse, and makes for such a stark contrast by season 4 through 5. We then get the credits, which I always like. I know some find it cheesy, but to me it's pretty effective and has a really good score. We cut to Rick and his best friend Shane talking, before being called to a police pursuit where several gang members die, not without Rick taking shots as well. Rick wakes up from a coma around 59 days after the virus went global. However, what I'm questioning is how is he not sore as all heck from laying there for that long? And where's his pee? I know there are some webisodes that show people were caring for him, and it's part of the reason some think he's immune to the Wildfire virus, but still. However, he still is helpless and confused, and honestly, his scared reactions make these scenes a whole lot worse, but in a good way. It's also such a stark contrast from the billion edits on TikTok as him with his murder beard and jacket being a complete psycho, to then see him as this scared and confused police officer, but it makes sense. How would you react any differently? He eventually finds a door. Don't dead open inside. Helpful. He wanders through some stairs that look like something out of an Amnesia level before eventually getting out, and finding out that his problems might just be a little worse than he thought. Oh yeah, and the entire military's wrecked. Sure, like these things would take down the military. Although with how intelligent they are in the first season, it does become a little bit more believable, and the twist from the second season helps too. Weirdly enough, the scene is eerily comforting with how quiet it is beyond the subtle score and the sounds of some bugs. It almost tricks you into thinking this is okay, but it's not. This is the end of humanity, and Rick will soon come to realize maybe he should have gone with it. He encounters a bisected bicycle zombie that I thought was played by Greg Nicotero, but I guess I was wrong. However, he soon gets hit.
Daddy! Carl, I found you.
Daddy, I got this sumbitch! I must knock him dead!
Dude, you can clearly hear him talking. I know Lizzie thought she could hear walkers, but is this like a thing that's imprinted on every kid in The Walking Dead? Because if so, that's just weird, and I doubt it's foreshadowing of their whispers. And I mean, he does mention that to, like, the other person, Morgan, like when he's like, oh, did he talk? But he just says that he said Carl, not like a full-blown sentence, which would very much prove he's not delusional, but a very much a functioning human being. It's still weird that they're like, oh, say a sentence, even though he did say a sentence, and you also knocked him out. It's a weird thing. Rick comes to again to find Morgan and his son Dwayne who hit him. Morgan is pretty cold when asking him if he got bit, and Rick, still not fully acclimated to the apocalypse, is confused. However, soon enough he learns of the situation when some walkers, or zombies, one of which being Morgan's wife, comes by. And the weird thing is, she comes by their house and just kind of stares. And this is a unique thing with the first season, which is the zombies seem to retain some part of their memory and humanity, which gives them a lot more flavor within all the zombie types. It also helps to make the threat a bit more scary, knowing in some way they're still there, but so horrifically ravaged by the virus, that it ends up having some sort of biblical implications throughout the show. This is something you'll learn pretty soon if you haven't already. This show is pretty dark and implies a lot more horrific things than you might think. Especially with this first season and its homey, nostalgic look that just gives the darker scenes so much more weight and uncanniness to them. It just feels wrong, and the whole world, well, what's left of it, knows that. Hence why Morgan and Dwayne were so violent towards Rick at the beginning. The next day, Rick is taught to use a bat to kill zombies, a weapon I'm sure will not come back in any way to scar him and his friends. They eventually get to the police station Rick worked at, wherein he asks them to come with him and join them, which I honestly wish they did. Morgan gives some bullshit reason not, for when all you know there could be plenty of other people who'll meet, and he's a full-grown man, and a strong one at that. You need another adult to help you in a situation like this. Either way, Rick's on his way to kill the bicycle zombie, while Morgan is trying to do so, the same with the zombified wife. However, the split comes when Rick is able to do so and Morgan isn't, which will come back to have horrific consequences later. It's ironic how Rick, despite coming into the apocalypse later, was able to adapt earlier than Morgan because of his previous job. He's in his cop car, before he leaves it in the opening, and manages to almost catch the quarry camp he'll find later, with Dale and Shane wondering who it is. Also, never realized Dale had glasses. Don't remember him using them, however they look good, so there's that. Shane talks to Lori, who's actually Rick's wife, about his duty to protect them, something I'm sure will not lead him to his death later on. Oh, and they've clearly been naughty for quite a while, concerning that flagrant kissing of another man's wife. Rick finds a horse who lasts approximately 5 minutes before getting torn apart, but not before a mysterious helicopter shows up flying about. Maybe it's to show the military was still up, but since Frank Darabont got fired after the season, we'll never know. Rick comes close to ending himself before getting inside a tank, finding and killing a soldier who's actually going to get his own prequel episode in Season 2, before Frank got fired. All hope seems lost until a mysterious voice on the radio talks to him, while Space Junk by Wang Chung plays. Ironic since the creators joke that space spores from outer space cause the virus, and also since a piece of space junk falls in Season 10. However, this is a great end to a pilot episode. Episode 2, Guts, starts with the quarry camp from before, showing other characters like Amy and Carl, Rick's son. Lori goes off into the woods alone, smart, before getting jump scared by Shane and then boning in said woods, also smart. In fact, it's probably the smartest decision any human's ever made. I see no wrong with boning your husband's friend, getting back shots while your husband's getting lost in a tank. Either way, we cut back to that, with the voice on the radio giving advice for Rick to make a run for it. He does, but not before taking a handy grenade from the tank zombie that'll come back later. He runs and meets with the person on the radio and goes up a ladder. He introduces himself as Glenn, a pizza delivery boy. Rick meets some others, including Wayne Dunlap, possibly the most important zombie of all time, and he's dead. Rest in peace, Wayne Dunlap. You'll be remembered. The other characters are Morales, Andrea, Jackie, and T-Dog. They explain that every zombie heard Rick shooting the others, and now they're trapped, with one even using a brick. They find Merle Dixon, who's probably half to blame for the situation of zombies finding them, considering he too is popping off like he just achieved a flow state in Call of Duty. He's also just slightly incredibly racist, and this presents a problem since half of the group are people of color. Things quickly escalate after Merle calls T-Dog the N-word, prompting Rick to set things straight. There are only the dead and the undead now. Oh, and he's gonna handcuff you to a roof. Say hi to the governor for me.
Only dark meat and white meat. There's us and the dead.
Okay, maybe dark meat isn't the term you want to use to describe the bad thing you're trying to kill. It still sounds a bit racist. Funny considering Freddy Krueger used that line as an insult to a black character in Freddy vs. Jason, which came out in 2003, same year as the first comic issue of The Walking Dead.
You're a cop. All I am anymore is a man looking for his wife and son. Anybody gets in the way of that's gonna lose.
Damn, if only you knew how true that would become. Rick and Andrea bond some more, like their characters in the comics, before some zombies start breaking in, causing them to come up with a plan. They take the two zombies from before, including Wayne Dunlap, and mash them up, covering Rick and Glenn in their guts. Hence the title and also being able to have the guts to pull something like this off. The plan manages to work until the rain comes in and they have to kill some of them. Despite this, they're still able to get in the truck and Glenn in a car and rescue the others, except Merle. T-Dog does try to save him, but after dropping the keys, he decides the best thing to do is just to lock the door so the zombies can't find him. Sucks that this is their last interaction concerning Merle's in Season 3 and interacts with the others. Would have liked to see them talk more since Merle does become a better person. They leave as Glenn speeds down the road to the quarry camp, ending Episode 2. Episode 3, Tell It to the Frogs, shifts the focus a lot more on the quarry camp and their interactions, fleshing out some of the characters like Amy, who's Andrea's sister, and Carol, who I'm sure won't grow up to be this badass wolf in sheep's clothing. Lori gives Carl his last haircut, at least I think. I don't remember him cutting it even throughout the rest of the show, and his actor looks better with short hair. Shane promises Carl he'll teach him to catch frogs and continues being something of a father figure. Glenn returns and Shane, along with the help of Jim, a mechanic, pop the hood of the car and turn it off since it's been blaring the alarm for however long now. The others return and Rick finally reunites with his family, which Shane and Lori are just so pleased about. Like, really, there's been nothing going on. All talk at night, finally having a chance to just let it all out and interact with people with little to no stakes, and it's nice. It's been relatively crazy for the past hour and 50-ish minutes of the season so far, so to take a break is a nice change of pace and allows us to care for these characters and know who they are in a much more average situations. Hell, Dale even starts to cement himself as a fan favorite. I sure hope nothing bad happens to him next season. We also see Ed, Carol's husband, who's just the worst. Shane and Dale discuss what they'll have to say to Daryl, Merle's brother, who soon became practically the main star of the series right behind Rick and Carol. They all go off to sleep while Rick and Lori, I'm pretty sure, just straight up have sex while Carl is just like 10 feet away from them, all while Shane watches from the outside. Really bizarre set of events, but okay. The next day, Daryl comes back from his hunt and is told by Rick that Merle was a danger and left behind, and doesn't exactly take it well.
Saying you handcuffed my brother to a roof? And you left him there? Yeah. Chokehold's illegal. Yeah, you can file a complaint.
However, Dale reluctantly goes with Rick, Glenn, and T-Dog to find and save Merle, along with finding the bag of guns Rick left near the tank. They take the van and park it on train tracks, which is ironic because the next time they ever see train tracks, they almost get killed by cannibals. Shane tries teaching Carl about catching frogs, further replacing Rick as Carl's dad somewhat, although Lori doesn't love that, which makes sense. She's quickly trying to atone for a mistake she made, leading Shane on and messing in the sheets with him. However, things get worse as Ed continues being an asshole and abuses Carol, leading Shane to beat the ever-loving crap out of him as Rick and the others find Merle's cut-off hand, indicating he wasn't waiting around to see if the lock would keep out the zombies, as the episode ends. Episode 4 Vatos continues with Rick and the gang searching for Merle while Jim has been digging graves after a nightmare he had. Clearly he's not right, and Dale takes note of this while Shane tries to stop him, more forcefully by arresting him. Back at the other group, Glenn decides to basically sacrifice himself by splitting up. However, things go wrong as he gets kidnapped by a group. However, that group loses a member and ends up with Rick, Daryl, and T-Dog. Jim is tied to a tree while Shane talks to him, being pretty civil and not crazy at all, showing that when he's in charge he's pretty okay and not hurting those that aren't hurting others. Back at the other group, Rick interrogates the kid from the group they found and figures out that the group's leader's name is Guillermo and the group is called Vatos, hence the title of the episode. They go to the place and attempt to make a trade, but end up having to get the bag of guns Rick dropped in to secure the deal. However, they pull a fast one and just pump all their guns at the group until a lady known as Abuela arrives, de-stressing the situation and showing them where Glenn is, along with some chihuahuas. Aw, cute! They also show the other sick people the group are caring for, showing they're not bad guys, just those caught in a bad situation and needing a lot of help to help people. It's funny that this all gets talked about, but not once does T-Dog mention that he did a fairly similar thing, revealed in Season 3 after he dies, of course. But again, different writers and directors for the next season, so I guess that's why. They walk back and find the van taken, obviously by Merle, but if the governor and Merle met in Atlanta and likely killed the Vatos group since it fits with the governor's character, he doesn't like anyone with any sort of power, and he, I guess, would probably like take the old people, or he just, I don't know, whatever, he just doesn't like anyone with any sort of power. I'm curious about the timeline and if the governor and Rick's group were ever that close. Yeah, I know the governor has like a no wasting bullets policy, but the Season 3 takes place like 10 months after this season, so he could have developed it later. Back at the quarry camp, they get attacked by zombies, losing most of their group that's been underdeveloped, including Ed and Amy. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even notice this many people the first time watching. It seems a lot of them were in the background or not even shown, which is pretty bad writing on Frank and Kirkman's part. The episode ends with their other four returning to camp as the last of the zombies die. Episode 5 Wildfire shows the ending of the camp attack, with Jackie revealing Jim got bit. The others want to kill him, but they decide to spare him for now. They also decide to go to the CDC, but not before Shane says Fort Benning, which would actually be a good idea, and it sucks that the show seemingly never goes there to show the aftermath. Andrea is looking at her dead sister's corpse, not ready to shoot her before she turns. Thus, Dale comforts her, telling her about his wife and all the chemo she went through because of cancer. After all of it, she became ready, yet Dale wasn't. Thus, he became angry and cheated, yet when he met Andrea and Amy, he finally felt like he cared for someone, and thus doesn't want her to go down the same path. Andrea tries developing Amy after she dies, but that doesn't work because she's dead? What's the point in caring about her when she's dead? This is an issue that The Walking Dead sadly repeats a lot, to the point it becomes a joke within the fanbase. Carol kills her dead asshole husband before he can turn, while Andrea eventually shoots Amy after hugging her. While Rick and Shane are walking through the woods, Shane successfully starts to descent into madness, until Dale and his judgy eyebrows appear, doing their thing. Eventually the group start their trip to the CDC, with Morales' family going to Birmingham. Wow, I really hope this character doesn't randomly show up again in Season 8 to talk to Rick, then get killed by Daryl, who doesn't care is one of the last people in the Atlanta group back in the quarry. That would be crazy. The others get on the road as Jim becomes so sick to the point they have to leave him tied to a tree. A sad end for a likable character. Wish we got more of him. We briefly get introduced to Dr. Jenner, the last remaining scientist in the CDC, still working on a cure. However, a breach with some corrosive fuel stalls his process. Back at the group, they eventually reach the CDC, but see nobody but zombies. They fight said zombies until all hope seems lost and Rick is begging the cameras of the CDC for help and thus Dr. Jenner for help, and he sees this, which results in the doors being opened and the episode ending. Episode 6, TS-19, starts with a flashback showing when Shane went to visit Rick during the apocalypse. Shit's obviously going down, so Shane tries to save Rick, but with every other patient being shot, he ends up having to leave. This whole shooting the patients thing might have been foreshadowing of the spoiler for the second season, which we'll technically get this episode, just not hear it. So I guess we technically don't get it. Back during present time, the group goes inside the CDC, only to find Dr. Jenner, who brings them down to the rooms where they can sleep. They finally rest without any worry, like episode 3 but in a much more secure location. However, Shane gets frustrated over the lack of answers and probes Jenner, first name Edwin, which just lowers the mood.
Dude, you are such a buzzkill, man.
Well, I guess he took the buzz part literally, because he's pretty much bald for most of season 2. Rick talks to Edwin Jenner about everything that's happened, and considering that later on Jenner tries to kill everyone in the upcoming explosion to save them, I wonder what would have happened if Rick simply rephrased his sentences from "you don't know what it's like out there" to "we need you out there," or something that would give him some reason to go on and be of real help. Because if Frank got to continue with his story, Jenner could have helped find a cure, and this show could have wrapped itself up in a nice, neat little bow before it outstayed its welcome. Honestly, even with the path they took, it would have been nice to see more of him, even meeting up with Eugene and calling him out on his bullshit, or maybe even stopping Shane, considering Jenner himself isn't exactly weak. However, things get worse as Shane unfortunately assaults Lori, so yeah, anyone saying he was just ahead of the curve, yeah, the curve of everyone this group meets being rapey, murderous assholes, but not ahead of the curve in terms of surviving. This dude was just crazy and a problem the group had to take care of. Plus, Lori in this season isn't as dumb as the next season, and she's a legitimately likable character. Yeah, she made a bad mistake cheating on her husband, which is horrible, but at least she was in a situation in which Shane took advantage of her, so it's not just her doing it, and she quickly tried to atone for her mistake, so yeah, he's just taking it too far, so he's clearly not just like a better survivor, he's just crazy and someone they needed to take care of and get rid of. The next day, Jenner takes him to the main computer and shows him Test Subject 19, hence the title of the episode, who is also his wife. She was a better scientist than he was, yet she offered to be a test subject to help out in this time of crisis, and what they figured out was this. Once you die, practically nothing comes back. All the neurons and things that make you who you are gone, except for the parts that get you up and moving. Gonna be honest, this scene is moving. It really shows you what they're heading for before Frank got fired and they changed direction. It was something much more interesting. It wasn't just going from community to community. It was about this virus that had very different implications than others. It's why there's that zombie in the purple shirt that just stared. It's why there's that lonely walker in season 2, so bits of these ideas remained. There was always so much more and then they had to ruin it. Eventually it gets revealed the place is gonna blow, so the group tries to convince Jenner they should leave, until Jenner launches into a rant about all the horrible things in the CDC that would end all of what's left of humanity, which honestly later on seems like maybe they should have just killed what's left of humanity. While it seems a little over the top, he knows he's gonna die and has nobody to talk to and has had no one to talk to for a while, and vent his frustrations to, so I guess it makes sense. Plus Daryl is ready to kill him, and he seems ready to kill anyone in this season. Eventually, Rick convinces him to open the door and for everyone to leave, and while most do, Jackie and Andrea stay. However, Dale convinces Andrea to leave with just Jenner and Jackie. Alliteration. And also, Jackie's been criminally underdeveloped throughout the season. Another low point. As the CDC explodes, the last remnants of the old world gone besides France who may have been working on a cure. Thus, the episode and the season ends. The Walking Dead Season 1, despite eventually leading to some of the more lackluster seasons in TV history, was incredibly well received and for good reason. It's a compelling, intelligent season of zombie media that made you care about its main characters, some more than others, and made you feel the intensity they felt. It introduced us to its world and to the world of Rick Grimes, who quickly became one of the best protagonists in all of media, with his rich character development that, while only briefly shown here, is still enough to hook people onto him and others. The season has a very good sense of pacing and never drags, although maybe it should have if it meant knowing the side characters better, as they're the weakest part of the show. Many of them fall into the background or just don't even show up, so when they die I couldn't really care besides it being violent. However, the pros overweigh the cons, and it shows because the next 2 seasons would boost us into the pop culture zeitgeist it would become, regardless of the several idiotic and incompetent decisions they would make. It's a worthwhile season that cements itself as something you need to watch and something you need to continue watching, part of the reason it held out for so long. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can follow me on Instagram or TikTok and can like and subscribe as it helps. It helps support these videos. It means you guys like them, and I will do them faster and more frequently, however not sacrificing quality or effort for it, just like probably like a day or 2 faster because I know you guys will watch it and stuff like that. Main point is I hope you enjoy these videos because I like making them, and I hope you have a good next year, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.